तो दोस्तों, आज के इस एक्सप्लेनर में हम समझेंगे द कंप्लीट A to Z of reproductive health. Welcome. I'm your host and today we're breaking down a massive, absolutely crucial topic. चाहे आप एग्जाम्स के लिए पढ़ रहे हो या बस अपनी बेसिक बायोलॉजी क्लियर करना चाहते हो, you're exactly in the right place. So let's just get straight into it.
Okay, real quick, here's our roadmap for today. हम 5 major topics cover करने वाले हैं. Population and reproductive health, modern contraceptive methods, medical termination of pregnancy, sexually transmitted diseases, and finally, infertility and ART solutions. That's the whole shebang, so let's hit that first milestone.
Section 1. Population and Reproductive Health. Before diving into the microscopic biology, we really need to understand the macro picture of our society's health.
So what exactly do we mean by reproductive health? Well, the World Health Organization gives us a very comprehensive definition. It's not just about, the absence of disease. It's a state of total well-being. याद रखिए ये simple acronym, PEBS. That stands for physical, emotional, behavioral and social aspects of reproduction. अगर ये चारों pillars strong हैं, तभी हम एक reproductively healthy society बन सकते हैं.
And the numbers really show why this topic is so incredibly urgent. Just think about these stats. In 1900, the world population was 2 billion. By the time of India's independence, around 1947, our population was roughly 350 million. But notice that 1951 mark. India was actually the very first country in the entire world to launch a family planning program. We should absolutely be proud of that. But despite those early efforts, thanks to rapidly declining death rates and way better medical care, India hit 1 billion by the year 2000 and 1.2 billion by 2011. Your rapid growth samajhna bahut zaruri hai because it meant we desperately needed solid scientific solutions to manage our future.
अब आगे बढ़ते हैं. Section 2. Modern contraceptive methods. Let's look at the medical solutions available to handle these challenges.
Now, before you look at specific methods, what actually makes a perfect contraceptive? Well, an ideal contraceptive must be user-friendly and easily available. It absolutely has to be effective and reversible, meaning if a couple wants to plan a family later on, they completely can. It should have little to no side effects, and very importantly, it shouldn't interfere with the natural sexual drive. These are basically the golden rules that medical science aims for.
Okay, so one of the most widely accepted methods in India is the IUD, or intrauterine device. Let's break down the 3 main categories you really need to know. First up, non-medicated, like the lips loop. Second, copper-releasing IUDs, like copper T and multi-load 375. The copper ions here actively suppress sperm motility. Basically, उन्हें slow कर देते हैं. And third, hormone-releasing IUDs, like progestersert and LNG20. These actually alter the internal environment, making the uterus inhospitable for implantation and the cervical mucus really hostile to sperm. It's a very logical, highly targeted medical approach.
Now, here is a truly unique Indian contribution to reproductive science. It's called Saheli. It's an oral contraceptive pill developed by the Central Drug Research Institute, or CDRI, right in Lucknow. Unlike your typical daily pills that manipulate hormones pretty heavily, Saheli is completely non-steroidal and non-hormonal. And honestly, the best part, you only have to take it once a week. It works by blocking estrogen receptors, which gives it high contraceptive value with very, very few side effects. A real game changer.
अब आते हैं emergency situations पे. 72. Fix this number in your mind. In cases of unprotected contact or, say, a sudden contraceptive failure, emergency contraceptives, like certain pills or even an IUD insertion, must be administered within 72 hours of coitus to actually be effective. Timing is literally everything here to avoid an unwanted pregnancy.
Finally, for couples who have completed their families and want a permanent solution, we have terminal surgical methods. On one side, vasectomy for males. A small incision is made in the scrotum to cut and tie the vas deferens. On the other side, tubectomy for females, where the fallopian tubes are cut and tied in the abdomen. Now listen carefully to this distinction. Ye procedures gametska formation nehi rokte. The body still perfectly makes sperm and ova. What they actually do is block the transport of these gametes. While they are highly, highly effective, keep in mind that their reversibility is very, very poor.
Section 3. Medical termination of pregnancy, which is commonly known as induced abortion.
45 to 50 million. That is the sheer volume of MTPs performed globally every single year. To put that massive number into perspective, that accounts for 1/5, or 20%, of all conceived pregnancies worldwide. It's a major medical reality that requires extremely careful legal and health regulation.
Because it involves deep ethical and social aspects, MTP is strictly regulated. India legalized MTP back in 1971, primarily to reduce illegal, unsafe abortions that were severely harming maternal health. Under the current guidelines, which were notably amended in 2017, for a pregnancy up to 12 weeks, so the first trimester, the approval of one registered medical practitioner is required. For pregnancies between 12 to 24 weeks, the approval of 2 doctors is legally mandated. This is generally only approved in cases where the pregnancy poses a grave risk to the physical or mental health of the mother, or, if there are serious fetal abnormalities.
Speaking of fetal abnormalities, let's look at a diagnostic technique called amniocentesis. Doctors carefully extract a small amount of amniotic fluid, which contains fetal cells, to analyze the chromosomes. It's an incredibly powerful medical tool to detect severe genetic disorders like Down syndrome or sickle cell anemia. However, because it reveals the chromosomal makeup, it obviously also reveals the sex of the fetus. Due to the tragic social issue of female feticide, India has a strict statutory ban on using amniocentesis for sex determination. It is legally restricted solely to detecting those genetic abnormalities. Moving right along, Section 4. Sexually transmitted diseases or reproductive tract infections. Keep your energy high, guys, because understanding this is absolutely crucial for personal and public health.
So the crucial point here is recognizing the early warning signs, which often include itching, fluid discharge, slight pain, and swelling in the genital region. But here is the major threat. ये symptoms अक्सर minor होते हैं और easily ignore हो जाते हैं. Especially in females, they might actually remain asymptomatic for a really long time. Ignored and untreated STDs can later lead to severe complications, things like pelvic inflammatory disease, ectopic pregnancies, or even infertility.
While a lot of STDs caused by bacteria or protozoa can totally be cured if detected early, viral STDs are a whole different story. Yad rakhna, remember this simple memory trick, the H cube. These are the 3 non-curable STDs, hepatitis B, herpes, specifically genital herpes, and HIV. All 3 start with H. While we do have medical management strategies for them, there is no absolute cure. Prevention, primarily through education and the use of barrier methods like condoms, is for sure the absolute best strategy here.
And that brings us to the final chapter of our explainer, Section 5, Infertility and ART, Assisted Reproductive Technology. When natural processes face roadblocks, medical science steps in.
First off, let's clearly define what we actually mean by infertility. It's medically defined as the inability to conceive a child despite at least 2 years of unprotected sexual cohabitation. Dhyan dijiye is timeline per. It is 2 full years. It's not a diagnosis doctors make after just a few months. It can happen due to a whole variety of reasons: physical blockages, congenital diseases, drugs, immunological factors, or even just modern lifestyle stress.
When infertility is diagnosed, doctors might turn to ART, like the famous IVF, or in vitro fertilization. The sequence is highly logical. Step 1. Gamete collection. The ovum from the female and sperm from the male, or sometimes from donors, are collected. Step 2. The actual in vitro part. Fertilization happens outside the body in a highly controlled lab environment, like a petri dish. Step 3. Once the embryo forms, it's carefully transferred back into the female's body to establish the pregnancy.
Now that embryo transfer step has 2 distinct medical routes, and it depends entirely on the size of the developing embryo, which is measured in cells called blastomeres. If the embryo has up to 8 blastomeres, we use ZIFT, zygote intrafallopian transfer. It's placed safely right into the fallopian tube. On the flip side, if it has grown to more than 8 blastomeres, we use IUT, intrauterine transfer. It's placed directly into the uterus. The precision of this science is honestly just amazing.
So we've covered a massive amount of biology today, from population tracking all the way to petri dishes. But I want to pose a thought-provoking question to you as we wrap things up. With all these incredible medical advancements, the high-tech clinics, the weekly pills, the complex surgeries, what is the ultimate foundation of a reproductively healthy society?
The answer isn't actually found in a laboratory. It's education and awareness. A conscious society is a healthy society. Breaking myths, understanding our own biology, and making informed choices is what truly matters at the end of the day. A conscious society ही healthy society होती है. Thank you so much for tuning into this explainer. But before you go, ask yourself, with all this information now at your fingertips, what is the very first myth you're going to break in your own community? Keep learning, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.